Hey everyone, I want to do a review today, kind of a review. I think it's just going to be explaining the Rappa electric fencing barrow that we use. I think most people saw it probably in a previous video. I wanted to share a bit of feedback on it, how we got on with it, why we chose it, and basically go through some of the functions of it and how it works. We really like it. I guess the big thing for us was that we wanted to be able to move our electric fencing quite regular, mob graze, set it up in areas where some stock fencing we haven't finished yet, and electric fencing gives us that portability to move it around. The best feature of it, I suppose, is the fact that you can wrap all 4 wires up at the same time. I would say it's obviously a lot quicker than having to use a manual winder or a single reel and reel one in at a time. It is slightly bigger, slightly more cumbersome, but everything's a trade-off. So we'll go into the barrow, I'll show you how it works, things that I like about it, and some things that will probably change. So the barrow itself came in one big pallet, really easy to put together. There's a couple of clips here which you pull out and then you just slot in these handles. I think if it could have been one solid unit, it would have been slightly better, a little bit less rickety. It doesn't feel weak, but when you've got quite a few stakes stacked up on here, you've got these 2 uprights here to hold them. It is quite heavy, so I would say that. Personally, we like to carry most of the stuff on it. I think if you weren't quite as strong, it is quite a weight to push along with everything on it. So that's just something to be wary of. To be honest with you, I think we could have done with, or we probably will put a couple of extra pieces of pipe on here, make it a bit taller so we can carry it. The other thing is, on a hill, these do slide across a little bit. So, you know, I would say a basket would be better, but it's a trade-off again with weight. If you go ahead and put a basket on there, it's just adding more weight to the actual unit. The only thing that we like to carry about is this lump hammer, because we've got quite rocky ground, and some of the corner posts and end posts, you do need to knock them in with a lump hammer really, or a mallet. I'd like to mount this just on this side here, just as a bit of a counterweight to the gearbox which is on this side. The barrow does tend to lean this way, and that's really because you've got this cam here, which I'll explain now, and the gearbox and the chain drive all on one side, which does make it slightly side heavy. It hasn't really tipped over on us, but it's just something to take into consideration. The way the actual barrow works is it's land drive, so the tyre is turning on the ground as you push the wheelbarrow. That is turning a pinion here, a smaller gear, which is turning this shaft, and this is where you put your reels of electric wire. And this is geared in such a way that it turns the wire ever so slightly quicker than the ground wheel, so it's always keeping the tension as you're reeling up. You haven't got to worry that as you turn a corner or cut a corner that you're going to end up with loads of slack. It is turning quicker and winding it up and keeping it tight, so that's a really good feature. This Mark II barrow, which I believe on the first models they didn't have it, is this cam system. And the way this works is they've put a small gearbox, a change of direction gearbox here, off the main drive, and what this does is this turns side to side like this, and this cam pushes against these 2 wheels with bearings in, and what that does is that actually slides this side to side. So as you're reeling in the electric wire and the wire feeds through these loops, it's actually guiding the wire evenly across the actual reel, which is a really nice feature, because if you've got a 200-meter reel, you don't want all of that wire reeling up in the center of the reel, and obviously it can slide off and it can come loose and can get tangled. So an even consistency across the reel is a really good feature, so that's really nice. This is a great system, and it means you can wire in 200 meters really easily. And if you pull the stakes out where you Another little feature that I really like, I haven't really used it too much, but there's a bracket down here, and that is there just for clearing the mud off the tyre, so that you always keep traction. That's, you know, just, it's a thoughtful piece. A little tensioner here on a spring for the chain. Yeah, it's really well designed. There's a little sticker there that tells you to oil the clutch pads and shaft daily. We oil it once every use, basically. It hasn't got to be every day, obviously, if you're not using it. So the way it works, you have a wing nut here and a pad, and then you have a spring bracket here. You put your first rail on, you then put your spring on, you then put your end pad on, and you sandwich them together nice and tight, and you tighten the wing nut. And what that's doing is, these are obviously then fixed to the shaft, and these pads are gripping onto the reels with a bit of tension on the spring in the centre, and that's keeping the whole lot bound together tight and turning with it. It does slip on there, so obviously, like I said, where it's actually tightening more, it's tightening quicker than the actual ground speed, it is allowed to slip a little bit, so that works. They do it in a 3 or a 4 wire version. This is the 4 wire version, which means you just have 2 reels on either side, and the trick is just to put the reels on in the correct order. You want, depending on which side of the fence you're on, you want bottom, second from the bottom, third top wire, or the exact reverse. So you want to start at the bottom here and work your way across. That does take a little bit of time just to get your head around. As you're putting it on the first time, you're thinking about which reel is on which side of the barrow, but to be honest with you, once you've done it a couple of times, it's pretty quick. They do show on a video, they've got videos on their website, which is great, and that was pretty helpful for us. They do show you reeling out sort of in between your legs so that you're pushing the barrow forwards, and I'm guessing that's sort of a health and safety reason, because you don't need to have it through the eyelets when it's unwinding. It's basically free spin. It can just they can just pull off and it's no issue. But to be honest with you, we found that a lot of the time we're reeling in to a point and then resetting out from that point, so we just tend to pull the wheelbarrow backwards. You need to watch where you're going. I'm not sure if I recommend doing it that way. It's just the way that we found is quite quick and easy to do it, and it works well. So that's the barrow in a nutshell. We'll put a link in the description for our other video where you can see it working. If you were operating it by yourself, you would peel up the centre stakes as you go, and you can obviously carry them on the barrow, and they do stay in situ. You know, it's not really a problem as such. The only thing about walking backwards with it, like I said, is you can't really see where you're going, which is a bit of an issue. And sometimes, I think it was more in summer because they feel really tight now because it's cold, but these rubber handles actually popped off at one point, which, you know, it's an easy fix to sort that. It's just worth mentioning these little things as a bit of feedback, really. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. We went with yellow stakes as our central electric stakes just for visibility, because we went with steel wire, which has better, it's better for carrying the current and the electricity, but it is less visible. If you go with a tape, if you've got horses and things, it's obviously much more visible. It's just the electric is, the metal wire gives us a better tension and it carries the current really well, which is why we went for that. The yellow stakes, therefore, because the visibility on the wire is less, the yellow stakes just create that bit of a boundary for the animals, and we've had no issues with the goats or the sheep. And it's worth noting the reason we went for the 4-wire system is because we went with goats and sheep. I know that there's a bit of, I've even seen it recently on a few groups, discussion about using netting, and you know, you shouldn't use netting with horned animals. Not an issue with us because we don't have horned animals, but I still think the palaver of moving long lengths of netting is just too much hassle really for what we wanted. So this is the energizer we went with, again from Rappa fencing. It's the Speedrite S500. They do now do a 1000 version, which I think is like 1.1 joule. This is 0.5 joules, I think it is. I'll put a a link to the website and you can find the products. It works really well because we didn't want something that you had to plug in, mains powered, although that will give you the most power and most consistent. And if you've got shorting out anywhere along the line, it can generally power through it. We did need something that could be moved around the fields, and that's why we went with the solar system. So it works really well. We get plenty of power through it. It has a battery built into it. It has multiple ways of mounting it. So there is a hole in the bottom for you to put it on a stake. There's also a slot on the back for sliding it onto 2 screws, which is how we mount it. Nice, quick, easy unscrewing connectors here for the earth and the positive line. And then on the bottom there's a button for opening it, and that's where your battery sits. 12-volt battery. So it does look small, but with topping up with power all the time, we haven't had any issues with it. We've had this system now probably, I'm trying to think, 4 or 5 months, probably something like that, and it's been in constant use every day. We check the power and we haven't really had any issues with it. We do have to trim below the lowest line if the grass gets long, or move the fence over onto what's been grazed, or the last option is to just move the bottom line up slightly if you're not worried about any animals escaping underneath. So this is how we slot it on. The cables are nice and long. Our earth cable goes over here to our earth stake, which we've knocked all the way in with our sledgehammer, and our positive line then joins onto our top strand, which you can now see we've wrapped a wire around each strand to pass electricity through. That's gone a little bit overkill really, that's just because I had the line that length cut, but you could shorten it. As long as you join all 4 together, it's not an issue. So these are the corner posts or end posts that you can start from, and they're really good. We are bashing the top in on them a little bit, which is a little bit frustrating, but even though they've got foot pegs at the bottom as well, this is as deep as we could get this one in, and it was still a little bit high, which does create a gap underneath. The trick with that is just to put another centre plastic post as close as you can to pull the wire down as quick as possible, so you end up with as fewer gaps. I could keep knocking it in, but you know, this is fine. This is tolerable for us. You can see here where we've wrapped the wire around each cable. We've done it on either side. That's not actually required really, because you know, it goes past an insulator. It's just a belt and braces, and that's the length of wire that I cut, so I just wrapped it around there. It only takes a second. The insulators are really good, steel posts are really good, and you can bash them in with a lump hammer, which is quite nice, especially if you've got rocky ground. You don't tend to find the issue with the smaller posts because they've only got a very thin pin on the bottom. The metal's quite thin, so you can normally, if you hit a stone, just move it one side or the other. But we haven't had too many issues yet. We'll have a look now at the end post, or the real post. This is the real post, where you'll end up with the barrow, and you have a few options here. It also has the isolators on as well, so you can use it as an end post, but more critically, it has pieces coming off it that you hang the reels on, and then you have a clip. This is also where you tension the actual electric fence. So by turning the wheel tight and slotting it on, there's a small piece of metal that grips in between these plastic rungs and holds the tension. Then you pop your clip in and it holds it tight. That makes it nice and secure, gives you a nice tight line, and we found that although we're probably 100 meters, 150 meters now, it's tight even on a couple of angles that we've put in there and corner posts. So this works really well. There is an option to turn the reel upside down to move the line up to the top of the reel or down to the bottom of the reel. That will either get your line closer to the floor if you need it, or it could bring your top line higher up so that you don't have so much of a gap here. That's sort of up to you as you put it on the reel post. This is just how we set it up. We've got a little bit of a gap there. I could have put the post closer to the stock fence in there. We just don't have that many escape artists, so it's not too much of a problem. But yeah, you have got an option there. The other option is just to put a second stake or something like that if you need it. It depends on obviously your setup and your fencing. It's not wholly accurate how we space our intermediate posts. As I'm going along, or if I'm the one putting the stakes out, I generally pace about 6 meters and then I put a stake. It's going to vary on your ground condition. If you've got a hump and a hollow, you'll need to put more stakes in to follow that contour. 6 meters works for about us because we've got plenty of stakes to do that. But if you had a big flat piece of ground, I think it's around 10 meters you can go to. So yeah, ours range probably between 4 and 8 meters. I don't think we've ever really gone to 10 meters. That's quite an expanse, and we are on a hill, even though it's not really steep and too undulating. We think that's quite a nice distance to keep the line straight and tight. But just really for information, if you're buying stakes, you can work it off around 10 meters, and then you've always got some extra then, or put some in between. Overall, we really like the Rappa system. Like I said, there are other systems on the market. We're not being sponsored for this video. We probably will purchase another system identical to this. Obviously not another barrow, but we'll get another reel post, some more corners, some more stakes, 4 more reels and an energizer, and then we've got 2 setups that we can move around our 5 different fields, and we can divide them up into subsections, which gives us endless possibilities. That's the important thing for us and how we graze our land. I know a lot of people do it in different ways. Some people put up permanent posts and they string the wire up on that. We looked at loads of different options. We really needed to be able to move the electric fence. And I think if you're looking for a system where you're looking for, you know, a good quality system with high power, 4 lines minimum, that sort of setup, I think this is a really good option. I think the smaller systems that you can move around are either too short, they're only a minimum of 100 meters, or sometimes only 50 meters. You know, I think that's where we sway towards the Rappa system. So in conclusion, we really like it. Hopefully we've explained things on the actual barrow and our system that you can get tips from. We're learning all the time. We do things slightly different depending on the setup, which field we're in and what we're tying into. And I think that's the variables that you'll always have at each property and each farm or small holding. But yeah, on the whole, it works for us. So thanks for watching the video. If you can subscribe, hit the like button, and possibly ring the bell so you get notifications of our other videos, and we'll see you on the next one.